2012 Ford Edge with the 3.5 liter V6. We are going to change out the spark plugs. We're going to change out the ignition coils, all 6 spark plugs, all 6 ignition coils, and these are the tools and the parts that are required to complete this job. The procedures outlined in this video should help you on any Ford with a 3.5 liter V6 or 3.7 liter V6. The procedure should be very similar. We're going to take this engine cover off. These little clips. Yours will probably have 2, one here and one there. But let's start right here with these 4, 5, and 6. You're going to take your pick, push up on that little red tab on all 3 of them. Then you're going to unplug it by pressing here. You're going to press that little part right there. Just lift it up a little bit. There we go. Now we can pull our spark plug out of the hole. Let's get some of this dirt and debris off of there first, because we don't want that dirt and debris falling inside of our spark plug hole. Let's start with number 4. Pull it out. And of course the boot is stuck in the hole. There we go. Got it. Alright, so make sure you have a pick handy, preferably a longer one, because you may need to dig this out with a pick. This typically will go here on the bottom of the ignition coil. Thankfully, I do have a set of aftermarket ignition coils. Well, kind of unfortunate that they're aftermarket. Anyhow, let's carry on. 5/8 inch socket. Yep. Before you start this job, make sure that you have ignition coils available to you. As you see in this video, the ignition coils do come apart when you take them out of the engine. So make sure you call your local parts store and see if there is ignition coils available for this engine so that you can complete this job should you need to purchase some new ignition coils, because the ignition coils were damaged when you removed them from this engine. Very important. These spark plugs come pre-gapped. Just make sure you take a quick look at it, and you can double check the gap if you want. You should always double check the gap just to make sure you have the correct gap. The easiest way to find out if something is wrong on a vehicle is to just compare it to something else, because typically there's more than one of a particular item on a vehicle. Like spark plugs, there's more than one spark plugs, more than one ignition coil, and so on and so forth. But if there is a situation where there isn't more than one of an item, like maybe a evap vent valve solenoid or something like that, then you'll have to do some testing. Since we are doing spark plugs, there is definitely more than one spark plug in the 6-cylinder. There are 6 of them. And we have 6 new spark plugs. So we're going to tighten that down. Don't over torque it. Be sure to use OEM Ford Motorcraft ignition coils. Do not put aftermarket ignition coils on your vehicle unless you absolutely have to. And when you do put the aftermarket ignition coils on, make sure that the aftermarket ignition coils are in the front of the engine, and put the OEM Ford Motorcraft ignition coils in the rear of the engine, which is more difficult to get to. Alright, so that's pretty much the procedure for changing out the spark plugs in the front bank. Now, you don't need to see me do all of them, because it's the same procedure as this one to do these 2 right here. So we're going to skip ahead on the video for this part and move on to taking the intake manifold apart. So let's go ahead and remove the intake manifold. So under here we have a red tab, and I'm not sure if the camera is picking it up or not, but I will show you once I undo the plug. I'll show you exactly what you have to do. You pull the tab back and then you press the button and you can unplug it. See, like that. That is your red tab. It's in this position normally. Well, I can't push it down, but it is in the forwardmost position, like right there. And then you pull it back and then you press right there. You press it right on that spot, right there. So we're going to take this bolt out right there on that boot. So let's take that out. Yeah, we can. See what I'm doing here? All right, now that is loose. So now we're going to remove this hose from the intake boot right there, that hose that you see me pulling out, and we'll set that to the side, and we should be able to remove the boot, but not quite yet. We do have one other hose that is keeping us connected, which is this hose right here, the breather hose coming from the valve cover. So we do need to disconnect that, and we're going to disconnect it right at the valve cover. Now I do have a close-up of that, so stay tuned. There's a close-up right there showing you how to release that quick disconnect from the valve cover. It's really simple. You lift up on that gray tab and slide it to the left, and while you're sliding it to the left, you're going to pull up on that hose, and it will disconnect from the valve cover rather easily. Well, with a little bit of effort, just like that. Actually, we can just leave that there and just take it out. Yeah, let's just do that. We'll just simply take it out of the mount like that. That's a lot easier. Instead of risking breaking these clips. Those clips are pretty fragile. We got to undo that. As you can see, I did it. It just comes out of there. We're going to unplug this. This is our vent valve, our purge valve, I should say. We're going to unplug that right there. Unplug it from that connector. Unplug it here like so. And then we're going to push the button and unplug it like that. Oh, I said I was going to leave that on there, didn't I? I don't know why I took it off. You don't have to take the throttle body off. So this hose here needs to be removed. There. So we're going to press that button, then slide it back. Let's start undoing these bolts. They're 8 millimeters. 8 millimeters. They're not that tight. Yeah, that's it. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts holding this upper intake manifold on. I can see that 100% has to come off. We'll use these pliers. Push that to the side like so. Give it a little twisty twist. And then we're going to slide that right off. Hook it up out of the way. Undo the clamp. Slide that back. Tuck it up out of the way. Now we want to undo our computer. So back there, we can just pull it. See that? It just slides right over that stud. And we're going to do the same thing for this one. Right there, to get it out of our way. Slides right over the stud. Just undo that. Now we're going to unplug these 2 connectors for our computer. You just simply yank on the top of there, like that. And undo it. It will unplug on its own. So I was wrong. You don't have to press that button. You just simply pull that tab back with a little bit of force and it will undo itself. So we're going to get these out of the way. So we're going to undo the coolant line here and move it to the side. Make it a little easier for ourselves. Be careful with these plastics. Plastics get brittle over time and you don't want to end up buying yourself a new reservoir. So we got this up out of the way. We're going to keep it in an upright position so that we don't lose any antifreeze. Now we should be able to get our manifold up off of the engine. Now there's something, it looks like there's something holding us. Let's see what we got. Oh, that's pretty brittle. We have right here in the back a breather that goes to the manifold. So back in there, that hose, I'm going to put an arrow to point to that. We need to disconnect it from there, and then we can take our manifold out. We should be able to get this manifold up out of the car now. The good thing is that there isn't a whole lot of stuff holding this manifold on. So let's do a quick recap of what we need to remove for this. To remove this intake manifold, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a bolt under there. And you can simply push that back to get to that bolt. This moves really easy. So this is a silencer, so you want to make sure you keep this on there. It keeps your vehicle nice and quiet. So we got this bolt, that one there in the corner, and all of these bolts. We got a hose here, a hose there, and we have that hose right there in the back of the intake manifold under that cover. It's not that much holding that intake manifold onto the vehicle. Now, what we don't want to do is drop anything in those holes. I'm going to take a rag, wipe this manifold surface off, but we want to wipe it away from the ports, because we don't want any debris falling in the ports. If we get some small, tiny particles in there, we'll be fine. The engine can handle that, digest it, spit it out, not a big deal. But we don't want anything in these ports. Shove a rag in that hole, shove it in that hole, and we'll stick this on top too, like double protection. All right, so these are our 3 ignition coils. Number 1 is the one we're having a problem with. That's the one that's misfiring. All right, so we got them unplugged. We'll see if we can, oh, number 1 came out easy. That's good. But that one is no good. So let's change that spark plug out. I'm only using this electric ratchet to run that spark plug down into the hole, and once I get some resistance, I immediately stop. Let's see if I can get my hand around the camera. Okay, so we're going to tighten that up manually. So at this point, the most critical steps in this process have already been covered. I've shown you how to remove the spark plugs and the ignition coils on the front bank, and the process is pretty much the same for the spark plugs and the ignition coils on the rear bank, the ones that we're doing right now, the more difficult ones, the ones that are underneath the intake manifold. So you just simply repeat the same process. Make sure you have your pick available so that you can get the boot that tends to separate from the ignition coil out of the spark plug tube. Now we're going to go ahead and skip to the part of the video where we're replacing the intake manifold gaskets and the throttle body gasket. And then we're going to end the video right there, because after that it's just a matter of putting everything back together in the reverse order that you took it apart. So the next step will be to reinstall the intake manifold. But before we install the intake manifold, we're going to replace the intake manifold gasket that you see right there, that green gasket, with the new gasket that we have in the package from Felpro. And we're also going to replace the throttle body gasket as well. That's included in that gasket kit that you see pictured on the screen. Just grab this little edge there. You can use a razor blade, you can use your pick, grab the edge of it, pull it out of the groove. It comes out super easy, just like that. It also comes with a throttle body gasket for this part right there. Put the new one in. So we're just going to simply put our gasket into the grooves. It fit right into the grooves. Just make sure it's in there. And then when you turn it upside down, make sure that that gasket does not slide out of the grooves, because we don't want this gasket to become misplaced while we're going back together, and then the gasket will get crushed in the wrong position and not do its job. So that's pretty much where we're going to end this video. The hardest part was taking the intake manifold off. Now you know exactly what you have to do. The only step after this, after putting the intake manifold gaskets on, will be to actually install the intake manifold itself. That's pretty much it. Just put it back together in the reverse order in which you took it apart. Now on the screen right there is the items. Again, at the beginning of the video, there are the items that we're going to need to do the job. But right here, right now, there's also items that we needed to do the job. So just to recap, so you can know exactly what was needed to do this job. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this helped you get this job done on your Ford 3.5 liter V6.